Samuel L. Jackson has had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane. In Snakes on a Plane. Released in 2006, I can remember watching an entertainment program and learning about a new upcoming movie called Snakes on a Plane, and I honestly thought that was about the most stupidest title for a movie I ever heard. Seriously, what even is this? But to be honest, how wrong was I? As it's an awesome title. Yep, the movie is literally about snakes on a plane. You get exactly what was promised on the tin in this desirably fun and enjoyable B-movie creature feature, of which gets highly elevated thanks to the presence of Samuel L. Jackson. So, wakey wakey, hands off Snakey! It's time to look into 10 things that you didn't know about snakes on a plane. Not to be confused with fellow Terror in the Sky movie, Snakes on a Plane. So, let's check it out. Number 10. Indonesian snakes and the movie Aliens led to the creation of Snakes on a Plane. Snakes on a Plane is the creation of University of Pittsburgh administrator and first-time Hollywood writer David Dale Sandro. He got the idea of writing the wacky caper after reading an article about Indonesian brown tree snakes slithering onto planes and hitching a ride during World War II. So Dale Sandro wrote a script in 1992 called Venom. However, something was missing, of which he turned to the movie Aliens for inspiration, a movie about human protagonists having to go up against a heap of alien creatures. And this lightning bolt moment made Dale Sandro change the story to include a heap of snakes let loose on the plane. So, just like Aliens, only snakes and not xenomorphs. Number 9. No studios wanted to board this plane. You know what I'm saying? It's 1995, the year of Batman Forever, GoldenEye, and Toy Story. And David Dale Sandro is trying to pitch his script to a movie studio. Any studio, really. There's one problem, though. No studio wanted a bar of this slithering script. Yep. All up, about 30 studios told Dale Sandro to get back on the plane and fly far away. So the script would sit around and collecting dust. Where several years later, in 1999, MTV showed interest in the script, but subsequently backed out. Yeah, thanks a lot, MTV, I guess. However though, the project would eventually be picked up by New Line Cinema, who actually would often produce alternative abstract movies that weren't of the mainstream norm, and I guess Snakes on a Plane was right up that alley. Rewrites would take place by several writers, including Gothica writer Sebastian Gutierrez and John Heffernan, and DreamWorks executive Craig Berenson would come on board as producer, as when the movie was being pitched to DreamWorks, the room of executives were told the movie's title, Snakes on a Plane, which caused everyone in the room to groan, which he saw as a good sign, on the account that it did create such a reaction. I get the logic. It caught everyone's attention. Just maybe not in a positive way. Number 8. Samuel L. Jackson was hired because of the movie's director, who didn't end up directing the movie. Now, Samuel L. Jackson was no stranger to creature feature B movies. Heck, in 1999 he starred in the genetically altered shark movie, Deep Blue Sea. Jump to 2001 and Samuel L. Jackson starred in the action comedy The 51st State, which was directed by Hong Kong movie director Ronnie Yu. Several years after that, Yu would be hired to direct Snakes on a Plane, and Jackson read in the trades that Yu was directing a movie called Snakes on a Plane, and just as with everyone else, the name really stood out to him. Jackson called Yu and asked him, "What is this Snakes on a Plane movie about?" And Yu replied, "It's about snakes on a plane." And Yu could tell that Jackson really wanted to star in the movie, and offered him the part of the movie's lead, FBI agent Neville Flynn, and Jackson accepted straight away, even before reading the script. However, despite the fact that Jackson got the part, Ronnie Yu would end up leaving the production and was replaced by director and stunt performer David R. Ellis, who incidentally did some second unit directing on the as-mentioned Deep Blue Sea, as well as Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and Matrix Reloaded. Number 7. The studio tried to change the movie's title. The movie's title of Snakes on a Plane generated so much buzz because it sounded like such an outrageous B-movie. No nuance, no shame, this is Snakes on a Plane and that's what you're going to get. People were further shocked upon learning that Samuel L. Jackson would be starring in the movie. The general attitude seemed to be, why on earth is Jackson starring in what sounds like a silly B-movie, and that he was kind of above this. Jackson stood by the movie, and for him starring in it, by saying that this was the kind of movie that he really would have wanted to see when he was a kid. I think back then, in the mid-2000s, the title of Snakes on a Plane just seemed so off the wall and strange. It was definitely bringing in lots and lots of discussion and attention. However, despite this, New Line Cinema thought the title gave too much of the movie away, and decided to change the movie's name to the very generic title of Pacific Air Flight 121. And yep, just like that, it now sounds like a plain old boring movie that really could have been about anything. Thankfully though, the movie had its title changed back to Snakes on a Plane, at Samuel L. Jackson's request, finding the idea of calling the movie Pacific Air Flight 121 to be the stupidest thing he had ever heard, and saying that it's like calling a movie Boat to Heaven. And he further stated, quote, "If you're coming to see this movie, you're going to see a plane full of deadly-ass snakes. And that's what it should be called. Deadly-ass snakes on a plane." Unquote. The movie totally should have been called Deadly-ass Snakes on a Plane. He even explained that the title Snakes on a Plane is why he took the job in the first place. Number 6. Snakes, snakes, and more snakes. Oh boy, I hope you guys aren't too squeamish when it comes to snakes, because an awful lot were used. Now, Snakes on a Plane was mainly filmed around Canada, particularly British Columbia, as well as Honolulu, Hawaii, and Hollywood, California. When it came to filming, up to 450 real snakes were used and were slithering around the set, which consisted of up to 30 different species of snakes, including the scarlet king snake, Burmese python, rattlesnakes, and the Australian taipan snake. Oh boy, you wouldn't want this snake approaching you while you're sitting on the toilet taking a crap. In addition to that, other snake techniques were created, particularly for when characters would be attacked by snakes, with methods including CGI snakes and animatronic snakes. Despite this though, the snakes that were used were venomless, and part of Samuel L. Jackson's contract stipulated that he couldn't be within 25 feet of a real snake. Number 5. The wedding crashers helped to give the movie an R rating. Something else that seemed to be a thorn in Samuel L. Jackson's thigh when it came to Snakes on a Plane was its safe, watered-down PG-13 rating. It was felt that the movie should be a bloody, violent, foul-mouthed B-movie romp, but New Line Cinema felt the best way to make the movie was to make it a PG-13, so little Timmy can see it. However, before the release of Snakes on a Plane, fellow New Line Cinema produced movie Wedding Crashers came out. A very edgy and raunchy movie for its time. One of which made $290 million on its $40 million budget. It proved to be a huge success and made a lot of money, of which that movie was rated R. So New Line Cinema then thought, oh well, you know what, now you mention it, maybe Snakes on a Plane can be rated R. Yeah, to hell with little Timmy, he can go watch that Shark Boy and Lava Girl bollocks instead. So 4 months after its initial shoot, everyone returned to film reshoots in order to give Snakes on a Plane an R rating, so more violence, sex, and bad language was filmed, including Samuel L. Jackson's now iconic line of,
"I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane."
A line that might actually be his most iconic in his filmography. But the big question is, where did that line come from? Exactly. Number 4. The strange origin of that line. So the first thing you probably think of when you think of Snakes on a Plane is hearing Samuel L. Jackson screaming out about how much he's had it with these snakes. Definitely making this movie that bit more memorable and badass. However, the line came from the most random of places. A fan. Okay, so here's what happened. A fan-made audio trailer of Snakes on a Plane was put together by someone who hadn't seen the film and just going by the title, which featured a voice that sounded like Samuel L. Jackson saying, "I want these snakes off this plane." A line that got such a strong reaction from fans, there were demands for this line to be added to the movie, and the production obliged, with the scene being shot in the reshoots as mentioned, with the line being retooled to Samuel L. Jackson saying that he's had it with these snakes, as opposed to saying he wants them off. Yeah, believe it or not, but fan reactions and responses were actually huge to the creative process of Snakes on a Plane, of which many claim to a degree this was kind of a fan-made movie, with a more interactive production, once again to a degree. I mean, there was even a competition where contestants could have their music used in the movie as part of its soundtrack. Oh, and in case you're wondering, here's what the censored TV edit of the famous line sounds like.
I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? Number 3, the sequel/ripoff came out before the actual movie. Okay, so not only did fans play an instrumental part of the creation of Snakes on a Plane, but it seems there was also a fan-made sequel/ripoff too, which is how we got Snakes on a Train, which was technically released straight to video a few days before Snakes on a Plane would get a theatrical release. Yeah, it's weird, so I'll do my best to explain. The premise was inspired by the premise of Snakes on a Plane, and made by an independent movie-making company called The Asylum. And you know, because there was so much hype surrounding the premise and name of Snakes on a Plane, they probably maybe thought that they could cash in on this phenomenon, and also ride this wave, and release the movie at the same time, and maybe have people believe that it's a sequel, or even the legitimate movie itself. Incidentally, Snakes on a Train got made because the Asylum company was promoting the movie at Cannes, you know, trying to get investors. And some Japanese investors were interested because of a mock-up poster that was put together which showed a giant snake eating a train, which actually wasn't part of the movie. But once these investors got involved, this scene actually had to be filmed. Now, I've never seen this movie, but it got bad reviews at the time, with the horror news website Dead Central asking, quote, "How the hell do you produce a ripoff this dispirited?" I do actually remember seeing Snakes on a Train at my local video store, and I actually thought that it looked like a genuine sequel, so it had me fooled, but I didn't end up watching it. To me, you just could not have a Snakes on a Plane spin-off without Samuel L. Jackson. That just didn't feel right. And I would say in the following years, the movie has pretty much become a forgotten film, lost in the sands of time, or rather slithering through the sands of time. Number 2, Snakes on a Plane avoided a test audience. Now, there was so much online buzz and fandom build up for Snakes on a Plane, pretty much for 2 reasons. 1, its title, and 2, Samuel L. Jackson's involvement. The buzz and anticipation for this movie was so huge, Wikipedia explains that the press felt that what started as a joke had now transformed into a fully fledged phenomenon, and that the movie was crowdsourced, and the first Wikipedia-ized movie made by the fans themselves. Heck, the lead up to the movie was so huge, according to Mental Floss, a Las Vegas booking agency took bets as to how many times Samuel L. Jackson would say motherfucker in the movie. However, because of all this buzz surrounding the movie, it was never screened to critics, at the insistence of the movie's director, David Ellis, as he felt that if critics saw an early screening, they would probably trash the movie, and thus kill its buzz. But nope, the production wasn't ready to lose that momentum. So, the critics were cut out. And let's face it, Snakes on a Plane is kind of a movie designed for critics to trash and to throw their college degrees at it and say, well, actually... Number 1, Snakes on a Plane and Butts on a Theatre Seat. Snakes on a Plane was released in August 2006 to its huge array of online fans who were really gearing up to see the movie. Sadly though, these fans must have forgotten to actually see the film, as they were nowhere in sight, as Snakes on a Plane only made $62 million on a $33 million budget. Much lower than expected considering the hype, and it was deemed a box office failure. Snakes on a Plane also got mixed reviews. It was felt that the movie was exactly what you were going to get. You know, what was promised, that being Snakes on a Plane, and that the movie wasn't going to break ground, but it didn't really need to. It just exists purely to be a fun piece of escape entertainment. It was also felt that this was a movie that requires fan participation in movie theaters, like all the screaming and cheering in all the right scenes. In fact, one fan may have gone a little too far, as going back to Mental Floss, at a screening of the movie in Phoenix, a prankster brought 2 rattlesnakes into the screening and released them into the theater. Oh my god, what a jerk! What was he thinking? In a case of life imitating art, it's almost like he tried to create his own Snakes on a Plane sequel, Snakes in a Movie Theater. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Over the years, I've heard fans of Snakes on a Plane say that the movie is in the category of so bad it's good, and that that's not an accident either. The movie was literally actually designed to be like this, to be a so bad it's good guilty pleasure B-movie. That's its function. Whereas there are others who think it is just plain bad, so I guess it all depends on your taste. And with that, this concludes this exploration into Snakes on a Plane, a movie which is the embodiment of B-movie guilty pleasure. This is the perfect movie to watch if you just want to see a dumb movie, one that's going to take your mind off the worries of the real world for 2 hours, and to just get lost in all its wonderful, silly enjoyability. Samuel L. Jackson would still defend the movie and insist that he is glad that he starred in it, as Snakes on a Plane is the kind of movie that he would have wanted to have seen when he was a kid. So despite his prestige and momentum as an actor, it's nice to see that he still sees the importance of fun B-movies. Anyway, I'm Minty, and if they made a modern remake of Snakes on a Plane, they could probably make it really scary and terrifying. Something like Raid Shadow Legend or NordVPN sponsors in a plane. Or sensitivity readers on a plane. Ugh. 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 See ya!